What is up, YouTube? We're going to do some squatting today. It's going to be awesome. I think we're going to add some weight to this because it's not heavy enough. No, I'm just kidding. It's heavy. But we're going to put some more on. And do a bunch of sets. Talk about some Bible stuff. I can't believe we're already up to Psalm 15. It's pretty wild. It means I've made 15 videos just of Psalms stuff. I'm trying to think mathematically. I must have started doing Psalm 1 on a bench day, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember. Seems like I would have been smarter than that. Done it on like a squat day and everything would have been, even numbers. Oh, that's what I did. Maybe I should do it the same way on both sides, even though it doesn't matter. Especially because you can't see it anyway, right? But I can see it, and it would bother me that I had two different types of plates. Especially because even though they weigh the same, they're like a different shape, different diameter even, which I find really weird. So let's not be consistent, right? Literally all three of these plates are a different diameter, but they all weigh 45 pounds. Well, technically this one might only weigh 44 pounds. One day we'll make a video of that. We'll bring a scale in here and weigh all these plates to see if they actually weigh what they say they weigh. Because somebody did that one time on a video and turned out they don't. Some weigh less, some weigh more. Pretty funny to me, but whatever. So now that we're at the 315, that's to me the low end of what's heavy to me. I don't know how to quantify that. I just know that I'm kind of stiff and sore and I want to get good quality work in, not just do a number because I feel like I need to do a certain number. And you got to be respectful of, the time and getting in the quality work you need. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. It doesn't look like I have the belt on, but I so have a belt on for this. Alright, cool. So we'll put this down. And we'll hit this and then talk about Psalm 15. Alright, that was that. Yeah, it felt pretty good. I don't know, maybe I was selling myself short. Maybe I should go a little heavier, but I feel like if I do some volume at this weight, I'll be better off in the long run. So, smart move, smart move. Alright, let's check out Psalm 15. It's really short. It's only 5 verses. 5 times 3 is 15. So, if you're into making jokes last week with Psalm 13 and numerology, but figure out 3 and 5 and 15, whatever. Normally you do 3 sets of 5 with 315. It's meant to be, guys. So here's I guess it depends on how people's perspective is and how they try to dance around, biblical standards. But Psalm 15 doesn't leave a lot of room. But don't worry, people that are always looking for wiggle room, they're going to find it, right? So let's read it. Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? Well, there's a couple questions, and we got to remember Old Testament, you're talking about the literal tabernacle, or you could have been referencing the future temple to come, the holy hill, Mount Zion. Some of this language is symbolic, and so before we say, well, that's just so specific, this idea of who can come before God is the real question. Whether it's a literal spot or just a figurative, anywhere and everywhere that we come before God in prayer and worship, come before God with, anything you would come before God with, yourself, your money, your whatever. But who is worthy? Who is welcome is sort of the idea behind this question. Because then the question gets answered. Sometimes there's questions that we don't answer. They're sort of rhetorical questions. Or maybe in some of the earlier Psalms, it was questions of, God, where are you? It seems like I'm in trouble and you're not there. There's different kinds of questions. But this question is immediately answered in verse 2. He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. All right. And just yesterday, I was reading in Acts to the youth class, and Paul was defending himself in front of Felix. And it says that Paul talked about 3 things in front of Felix. And one of them was righteousness. Living right. We always joke about living right, talk about living right. And sometimes it's a joke, but it's really not a joke. It's a serious thing to God. So that's a sentence. He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. That's one part of it, all right? So I feel like we need to think about that while I do some more squats here. Walking uprightly, doing what is right, and heart. Heart. That's an interesting concept, of course, in Scripture too. Speaketh the truth in his heart. Maybe your inner voice, or it's what you think about, what you dwell on, what you're based on from the inside, that foundation. It's got to be truth, or it's going to fall apart. Oh, yeah, that was hard. It is great, though, getting them legs working. On a Monday, start the week off right. So, let's go on, because we're still answering the question, who can come before God? You know, because there's a lot of people out there that think they can come any old way, doing any old thing, and ignore everything else in the Bible. But God's loving, so he has to accept me. Which is really not logical, even without what the rest of the Bible says. Like, you get to define what somebody else means by what they say. Sure, God says he's loving. What does that mean? It's not open to interpretation. It's open to what he says it is. You know what I'm saying? So here's an idea. This is important, because this is the next answer to the question, the sentence. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor. So, if you think about it this way, this is really important to Jewish people. It was really important to Jesus. It was also really important to the early church in the book of Acts. What do these two verses teach us? Verse 2 and 3, when you look at them, you back out a minute and just kind of take a bird's eye view, like a conceptual view of what they're talking about. Verse 2 is talking about our relationship with God, because walking uprightly and righteousness and truth, those are things that are defined by God. Those are things that are set forth by God. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You know, so doing right is only going to really be objectively judged by God, because humans are just going to subjectively determine what that is based in the moment. But in reality, if we're going to do what's right, it's doing right by God's law, by God's standard. Then, so that goes back to Deuteronomy 6, or what Jesus told the rich young ruler, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Well, that's what verse 2 is talking about. Now, what's verse 3 talking about? Loving your neighbor as yourself. So, backbiting, I looked at other translations because it's fun to see how words are translated. One translation used the word slander. And even slander, it's almost like, do we even use that word that much? You know, backbiteth, we don't use that word at all. Slander, we kind of know what that is, but that's more of a legal term now than just the everyday vernacular. But just, it's saying things that aren't true about other people. Let's just say it that way. You know, because we get hypersensitive, and it's not just Christians, it's anybody who wants to be all hypersensitive about nice and mean and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, listen, if it's true, sometimes that's all that it matters. It doesn't matter if it's mean or nice or feels good or feels bad. If it's true or not true, you know, that's really the deciding factor to me. And not that Henry Rollins is my standard for a whole lot of anything, but he made a great point. You know, he's like, I'll say anything about anybody if I've already answered the question, would I say it to their face? Or have I already said it to their face? And he's the kind of punk rock, old school guy that would walk up to some people and just say "f you" right to their face anyway. And that's a good, maybe somewhat of a good way to think about it. But again, it really comes down to, is it true? Because it goes on, doesn't do evil to his neighbor. I mean, that's a broad brush too. Are we going to look out for our neighbor if you see their, like sometimes it gets really windy. As an example, and some have like the little bin for the recycling, and they empty it, they put it back, and then throughout the rest of the day, before he gets home from work or something, or the wind might have blown it down the street. I mean, that's just a way you can help your neighbor out. Pick their recycling bin up, bring it back, and turn it upside down so the wind doesn't get in it and shove it down the street. I mean, that's like a little thing that people do for each other in our neighborhood because it's like kind of windy on our street sometimes. I mean, that's a silly little thing, but doing good instead of evil. I mean, I don't know what people do. Petty, annoying things. I'm sure they're all over the internet. You probably don't have to look hard to find them. So there we go. And nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor. Now, reproach, like having what's the word I'm looking for here? Not bad attitude, but like just holding a grudge, I guess would be the thing. Like your neighbor does something, and maybe they did or didn't do it intentionally to bother you. Most of the time, people don't, because we have this arrogance that people do stuff just to annoy you, as if you're important enough to be in their thoughts and mind that often. So that always cracks me up. And people think, you did that on purpose because you don't like me. It's like, dude, I don't think about you that much. Let's be real. And I'm sure you don't think about me that much either. So there's loving God, there's loving your neighbor. So that helps, when you answer the question of who can come before God. So I'm going to do some more squats, and then we will continue reading. Yep, kind of heavy. That's okay. Got a good psalm here. Got a good psalm going here. More important. All right, so kind of answer the question, kind of points us right back to what it says. in Deuteronomy, what Jesus tells us in the New Testament, and then just sort of the practical application of how the apostles were carrying out these commands in the way they functioned and formed the new churches in the New Testament. So, again, you don't have to come up with something new or different. Just go back to the Bible, man. It's really not hard. Instead of just pragmatically trying to figure out what everybody else is doing and trying it and seeing if it works. Just be old school, man. Old school's the way to go. And I don't mean old school like 1950s. Throw that garbage out too. I'm talking old school like 2,000 years ago. It was good enough for that. It's good enough. Yeah. I mean, you gotta think, the Bible was written over and it covers, thousands of years of history. So if it's worked for thousands of years, why do we think we need to change it now? Come on. So let's go on to verse 4. In whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honoreth them that fear the Lord. Fear the Lord. Not love the Lord, which is important. A lot of good stuff. John writes us about, loving God, and you prove it by doing what? Obeying his commands. Jesus even says it, if you love me, keep my commandments. First John says that's how you know people really love God. They keep his commandments and love each other. So these things are tied together. You can't separate them. He that sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not. That means be a person of your word. If you say you're going to do it, make a commitment, and then think, oh, that's harder than I thought. I don't want to do it. Because trust me, I've dealt with that with so many people over the years. They say they're going to do something, then they back out the last minute because it was going to be harder than they thought, or not be comfortable, or whatever it is. And I'm just I'm looking for this kind of person right here. And I've said it and said it and said it. I'm not going to waste my time with people that aren't like that. And I don't care if that eliminates a lot of people from around me. I'm tired of this. Everybody's cool and everything is cool stuff. Because when the rubber meets the road, you disappear. That's not cool. Okay? So anyway. And then here's another one that I guess maybe more of a then problem than a now problem. At least from a person-to-person level. People are still doing this from a corporate level. He that putteth not out his money to usury. So in other words, I guess individually people would be loaning money and charging like crazy interest and stuff. But of course we still have to deal with that. Little finance companies all over the place. You ever get those things in the mail? It's so annoying. Oh, we'll loan you $1,500. Like 25% interest. No. Why don't I just go work harder? And I make the money and then it's mine and I don't have to give it back. So anyway, nor taketh a reward against the innocent. Like bribing somebody to testify against somebody in court, maybe something like that, or that sort of thing. He that doeth these things shall never be moved. I like that idea, never be moved. That kind of takes you back to Psalm 1 a little bit there, where it's like being planted by the rivers of water. Never be moved, because you're rooted, you're grounded, which is also another thing that gets repeated in the New Testament. So, just the Bible's like consistent, man. That's my point. Old Testament to New Testament. And we need it all, and it's going to make your life better the more you're obedient to God and His Word and take His standards seriously and the descriptions of what people are supposed to be and do and look like as they function and do the work of the church and family and just the whole nine yards, really. So maybe one day I'll write a book. I don't know. No one would buy it because no one really cares that much about being obedient to God's Word. They just want to be in His little club. So go out and have a good day if you want to.